It started when my cousin Tom threw a bachelor party for his brother, my cousin James. I was invited, and of course I agreed and said that I would come. My wife Doris didn't like it. Doris had an extremely low opinion of bachelor parties because of what she saw in her family. Her brother Sam visited one of them once and ended up contracting a disease that he could not adequately explain to his wife. Her cousin Ron left his wife and 2 children and ran off with the bachelor party's hired entertainment. Her father got drunk at a bachelor party, crashed his car, and ended up in hospital for a week. No, Doris was not at all happy about my decision to accept the invitation. I pointed out that she herself had gone to a couple of bachelorette parties where there were male strippers, and she said that was different. Do you realize how stupid this sounds? It is a well-known fact that women can control themselves, but men cannot. Do you know how stupid that sounds? I don't want to fight about this, Frank. I don't want you to go to Jim's bachelor party. Take him to dinner or something, but I don't want you to go this evening. What you're saying, Doris, is that you don't trust me. After 2 years of dating, 2 years of living together, and 8 years of marriage, you don't know me better than that. Well, I'll go anyway, Doris, and that's final. This is, of course, not true. There were 9 days left until the party, and Doris used those 9 days to do everything she could to prevent me from going. It was quite cool at home, since she hardly noticed me. Her main weapon was, of course, her control over sex. We usually made love 3 or 4 times a week, but for 9 days all I heard was, "Not today, Frank. I don't feel well." There was also a perennial favorite, "Not today, I have a headache." It was clear to me that if I did go, the drought might continue long after the party was a memory, but I could be as stubborn and stupid as Doris, and I would go anyway. We lived in a state where non-consensual marital sex was not a crime, and I could have just taken what I needed, but the consequences weren't worth it. I was able to take revenge, albeit to a limited extent. Every Friday night, I always, without exception, took Doris out to dinner. On Friday, when I came home from work, Doris was dressed and ready to go out. I went into the bedroom, which I turned into a home office, sat down at the table, and turned on the computer. When I didn't come downstairs dressed for dinner, Doris came to get me. She entered the room and said, "What are you doing? Why aren't you going to dinner?" "I'm too busy looking for good adult sites on the internet." "What are you doing?" "I've been looking for a good video. Ever since you kicked me off, I've been looking for good material. You can watch if you want." The loud slamming of the door as she left made it clear to me that she was not interested in being a spectator. On Saturday, I got up and left the house before Doris woke up. I had a standing golf meeting with 3 friends every Saturday, and our tea time was 10 minutes after 6, and Doris didn't get up until 8 or so. She had a regular appointment at the beauty salon at 11, and usually she was home when I returned from golfing in Red Ridge. Doris missed her appointment that morning because I took her car instead of my pickup. Her car had an automatic transmission, and my truck had a manual transmission, and Doris didn't know how to drive a manual. I know it doesn't sound like much of a way to hit back, but when you play games, you have to take what you can get. To say Doris was furious when I returned home would be an understatement. I ignored her and got ready to go to Jim's bachelor party. She yelled one last time, "Damn it, Frank. I told you I don't want you to go to this party." And I ignored her as I left the house, got in the truck, and headed to the party. It was a typical boys' party. There were 17 guys there, and I knew and liked most of them. Let's just say the majority, because Mel Timmons was there, and I didn't like him at all. He always had a thing for Doris and tried to break us up several times before we got married. 3 poker tables were set up. It was a nickel, dime, quarter, dealer's choice with a limit of 3 raises, so no one was going to get hurt too much. After 2 hours of playing in Jim's apartment, the doorbell rang and Tom opened it to find 2 policewomen standing there. One of them said, "Your neighbors are complaining about the noise. Whose apartment is this?" Tom pointed at Jim, and the 2 walked up to him and instantly handcuffed him, saying, "You are under arrest." The handcuffs were real, not fake. One of the police officers started reading Jim his rights. You have the right to remain silent and all that. Until this moment, everyone thought that the girls were dancers. It was clear from the look on Tom's face that he wasn't expecting this, and taking a closer look at their uniforms, it seemed like they weren't fake. Everyone began to worry about what was going on until one of them, reading Jim's rights, took out a mini cassette recorder from her pocket and began playing music as the other police officer began to take off her uniform. From then on, it was exactly the boys' party Doris had imagined. It was wild, and I won't say I wasn't tempted. But I didn't give in. I was just watching what was happening. I was watching Tom, Jim, and Mark having fun with Missy when Mel came up to me and said, "Aren't you going to play?" No, no way. If I did that and Doris found out, she'd kick me out. You know, it's all about marriage vows and everything. Too bad for you, man. These two ladies are a gem, and they know what they're doing. I've never experienced better. As I watched, I wondered why I didn't just say, "Fuck Doris," and join in. After all, I'm a man and I need sex, but Doris doesn't give it to me, and I'm in an apartment with two girls who are ready to do it. It will not be love, and there will be no emotional attachment. It would just be sex for the sake of sex, so why not? Several times I reached out to my lock or belt buckle, but at the last moment I stopped. Just before the party started to fall apart, both girls came up to me and Missy said, "What's the matter, honey? Don't you like us?" Quite the opposite. I'm dying to do this with both of you, but unfortunately I have a character flaw. Character flaw? Donna asked. What kind of disadvantage is this? I have a stupid thought in my head that I should remain faithful to my wife. Is it true? Donna said. I didn't think there were such good guys left. I'll have to give you my number in case your wife is stupid enough to let you go. I'll double that, honey, Missy said. I'd love to have a guy who thinks like that. Tom and Jim came and took them away, and as I watched their beautiful asses walking away from me, I thought, you give sex at parties and want a guy like me? Wow. The party started to fall apart, and soon it was just Tom, Jim, two girls, and me. I was relatively sober, so I stayed to help with the cleanup. Donna and Missy came up to me, and Donna said, "You should at least give us a kiss, honey," and Missy giggled and said, "For free, of course." They both kissed me and gave me a piece of paper with their phone numbers on it. Donna said, "I'm serious, honey. If your wife is stupid enough to let you go, call me." Both left, and Tom, who was a fundraiser for the girls, said, "I wish I was born a sexy babe." These two just spent 4 hours enjoying themselves and left here with $2,300 between them. And that's not even counting the $400 they got for coming here and having a dance. That's almost $340 an hour. We cleaned up the place and I left, but the night wasn't over for me yet. When I got out, I saw two girls standing in front of a Ford Focus with the hood up. I approached and asked, "Problems?" "It won't start." I went to my truck, grabbed a flashlight from the glove compartment, and went back to take a look. "You're out of luck today," I said. "Your positive battery terminal connector is oxidized and cracked. No auto parts are working tonight, so the car is dead until tomorrow." "Crap," Missy said. "Now what?" "We'll call a taxi," Donna said. "At this time of night, we'll be here for hours." "No, you won't," I said. "I'll give you a ride where you need to go. I have the day off tomorrow, so I can go get some parts, fix her up, and we'll come back here to start her up." "Oh God, you're our savior, honey," Donna said, and we got in my truck and I gave them a ride home. It turned out that it was Donna's car, but they were neighbors, so I needed to take them to the same place. When I brought them to their house, I agreed to pick up Donna at 10 in the morning. When I returned home, I found that the bedroom door was locked. I remembered the John Wayne movie where his wife locked him outside the bedroom and he kicked down the door screaming, "There won't be any locked doors in this house," and I briefly considered doing the same, but reason took over. If I knocked down a door, I'd have to fix it or replace it, and unless I was going to have non-consensual marital sex, There was only a bed waiting for me outside the door, and the sofa in the living room was just as comfortable. Comfortable couch or not, I was in a bad mood when I got up this morning. Doris was still sleeping, so I made myself breakfast and was sitting at the table eating when Doris came into the room. She looked back and said, "Where's my breakfast?" "You haven't cooked it yet," I said, and I stood up and put my dirty dishes in the dishwasher, then headed for the garage door. "Where are you going, Frank?" "To Donna and then to Jim's to fix her car." "Who is Donna?" "One of the dancers from last night." "Are you going to pick her up? I assume you had sex with her last night, right? Coming back for more," she said contemptuously. "Why do you care? You don't want to give it to me, so why do you care?" And then, because I'm a man and men can be stupid around women, I let my words run wild. "And that makes me think, Doris, you love sex as much as I do, so you must be suffering just like I am. Or not. Maybe you're not suffering at all. Maybe there's a guy on the side to keep you in a good mood while you make me miserable. Is that so, Doris? Are you cuckolding me?" I could see the shock on her face as I ranted, and it pleased me. "I have to go. Donna is expecting me at 10. I headed towards the door. "Frank, come back here. We need to talk. We need to figure this out now. The only thing we need, Doris, is for you to apologize for being an absolute bitch the last 2 weeks." I went out to the garage, grabbed my cable tools from my toolbox, then went to get Donna. We stopped at a parts store, bought the right terminal, and went to Jim's to fix her car. On the way, she asked me why I looked so gloomy, and I was in such a mood that I told her the whole story. "So, besides the fact that she doesn't like bachelor parties, she thinks you cheated on her yesterday." "That's for sure. Do you want me to call her and tell her what really happened?" "God, no. This will only make the situation worse. She will think that I put you up to it and that you are lying for me. She already thinks that I am with you now in order to have sex. All I can say, honey, is if things go south between you two, call me." She looked at me for a few seconds, then said, "But you won't call, will you? I'm just a light woman." "About behavior, and who wants to deal with that, right?" "Don't be silly, Donna. You're a wonderful woman and seem nice. I'm sure we could be good friends, but as long as I'm married, it can't be more than that. And that includes any breakup that might happen between me and my wife. I will not break my marriage vows as long as I am legally married. If there is a divorce and you are still around, you will be one of the first people I call." She looked at me again and said, "I believe you mean it." "Seriously, honey, seriously." She leaned over and kissed me. "I haven't met many really nice guys in my life, honey, but you top the list of the few I know." We got to Jim's, I fixed her car and waited until it started and drove away before returning home. When I returned, Doris was gone. I went to the garage and changed the truck's oil, and when Doris still hadn't returned, I warmed up some leftovers, ate, and settled in front of the TV. Doris returned around 7 and didn't say a word as she walked through the house and into the kitchen. I heard her rattling around getting herself something to eat, and about 20 minutes later, she came into the living room and stood with her hands on her hips. "Do you want to know where I've been?" I looked at her and said, "No. Maybe I was looking for a lover since you have a dancer." You must understand my state at that moment. She was a bitch to me for almost 2 weeks and deprived me of sex in an attempt to force me to do her bidding. I was angry and I was tired of it, so I said, "I doubt you were looking. Most likely, you were just with that guy you've been cheating on me with since you stopped having sex with me." I looked back at the TV as she screamed, "You bastard, how can you think of me like that? It's just as easy for me to think about you as it is for you to think about me. Besides, didn't you say you were looking?" She turned around and left the room, and I went back to watching TV. I decided to go to bed early to avoid having the door locked again, and was lying in bed reading when Doris came into the bedroom. "I don't want you here with me," she said. "Too bad, Doris. I slept on the couch last night, so if you don't want to be here with me, you can sleep on the couch tonight." She left the room and slammed the door loudly. I got up and left for work before Doris woke up, and I liked it because I could start the day without another fight with her. When I got home from work that evening and drove up to the house, I saw things scattered all over the yard. When I got out of the truck, I realized that these were my things. My stuff. In fact, it looked like all my clothes were on the lawn. What the hell is Doris doing now? The door was locked, so I put my key in the lock, but it didn't fit. I walked around the house and tried another door. The same. Doris blocked me from outside the house. This was the last straw. I went back to the truck, grabbed the pry bar, and went back out to the porch. Since Doris was the one who was supposed to clean up the mess, I used a pry bar to break the large window, then entered the house. I grabbed a few trash bags and went to collect my clothes before loading them into the truck. I walked around the house and took everything I needed. I had a separate savings account where I put 10% of my salary aside each day for vacations, so before turning off the computer, I transferred all the money from our savings and checking accounts to a vacation account that Doris did not have access to. I called to cancel all of our credit cards, leaving only American Express, which was in my name and used for business travel. I don't know what Doris was thinking, but she must have realized that I wasn't going to just sit there and take it. Kick me out of the house. Let's see how she likes living alone without credit cards and money other than her salary. I left home and headed to a motel near work. I was just bringing the last things into my room when my mobile phone rang. I looked at the display and saw that it wasn't Doris, so I picked up the phone. Hello? Frank, this is Ray Hendrickson. Maybe I'm interfering in the wrong business, but I thought you should know. Doris is in the Hitchin Post with Mel Timmons, and they look pretty chummy. The definition of friendly Ray. They're sitting next to each other in one of the back booths. Mel put his arm around her, and he kissed her. She didn't do anything to push him away. Thanks for the information, Ray. I appreciate it. So this bitch finally gave Mel what he always wanted. Well, when I came to work the next day, Stella, our secretary, left me several messages. 3 of them were from Doris, and I threw them away without reading them. I told Stella that I didn't want to take calls from Doris and to tell her that I was in a meeting or out of the office. On the other hand, you can just tell her that I said not to pair me with her under any circumstances. Problems at home? Not for long. Around 10 o'clock, things slowed down a bit, and I was able to call a friend who had recently gone through a divorce and got the name of his lawyer. I called and made an appointment for the next day. I wasn't ready for divorce yet, but I wanted to know what I would face if it came to that. There was a diner across from the motel, and before going to my room, I went in, had a few beers, and watched a basketball game on TV. I wasn't interested in teams, but it was something to do. The next day, I received bad news from the lawyer. We lived in a no-fault state, so any divorce would result in an equal division of assets, and since I made almost twice as much as Doris, I would have to pay her alimony. Additionally, since I initiated the divorce, I had to pay all legal fees along with my attorney's fees. In addition to this, if Doris decides to fight the divorce, I could, depending on the judge, also pay her attorney fees. The only positive thing was that we didn't have children. This information cooled my ardor a little. In the long run, it would be cheaper to just stay married, but not live together. If Doris didn't like it, she could file for divorce, and then at least I wouldn't have to pay court fees and her attorney's fees. I left the lawyer's office with the intention of finding a reasonable apartment closer to work and starting a new life. Good morning. Thank you for calling Benton and Associates. How may I help you? Dory, it's Steph. Hey, Steph, what's wrong? Are you and Frank okay? Why do you ask? You know I work in the Marston building, right? I saw Frank leaving Tucker Davidson's office this morning. Why are you telling me this? Tucker, divorce lawyer. Oh shit. Not very good, huh? Not good at all. I've got 6 lines blinking, so I have to go. Can we meet for lunch at Maxine's? Say, noon or so. Agreed. After the waitress took the order, Doris asked, Does this Tucker do anything else besides scams? No. His practice is exclusively family law, and it's mostly divorces. Are you and Frank having problems? Rather, yes. It must be something serious if Frank is talking to Tucker. Doris told Steph what was happening. You're kidding, Dory. You've known Frank for so long, and you don't know him better. Frank would never participate in something like you say, any more than you would have sex at a frat party. But he did it. Mel Timmons called me and told me. Chalk what? He called me and said Frank did it. Why did he do this? He was always trying to be with me, but I was with Frank, and when I married Frank, Mel told me that one day I would regret choosing Frank over him. He called to gloat, said that's how the so-called loving husband, is cheating on me with 2 dancers. And you believed him? Frank confirmed it the next day. He said he was going to meet one of the dancers and left the house. This doesn't sound like the Frank I know. Doris told Steph how that day went, and Steph said, and you didn't give him a chance to explain what really happened? That he was just helping someone with a car. Why would I, after what Mel said? So after one call you threw Frank under the bus. It was more than a call. Mel said he had pictures. After Frank left to meet the lady, I met Mel at Denny's, and he described the whole evening. There were 2 dancers there, and Frank did this to both of them several times. Mel probably thought I didn't believe him, so he said he had photographs, and if I met him at the Hitchin Post, the next evening he would show them to me. Why didn't he show them to you at Denny's? He said he left his phone on charge and didn't take it with him. Frank was home when I got back from meeting Mel, and I made him wonder if I was looking for someone to get back at him. I shouldn't have, because Frank accused me of cheating on me for weeks. I ended up sleeping on the couch that night, and in the morning, angry, I threw all of Frank's things out on the front lawn and called a locksmith to change the locks. How did Frank react to this? Not very good. He broke a window to get into the house, took everything he wanted, and left. What did he say to you? I couldn't get a hold of him. He wouldn't answer my calls. I called a company to fix a window, and when I tried to pay with a credit card, it declined, so I had to write a check. I hope you were smart enough to call the bank before you wrote the check. If Frank was mad enough to cancel your credit cards, he might as well clean out the bank accounts. Oh damn, this is getting worse and worse. What about Mel's photos? I met him at the Hitchin Post, and he showed me 2 photographs. They showed Frank looking at a couple of guys doing it to one of the ladies. The only face that was visible was Frank's face. When I asked if this was his evidence, he said no, but wanted something in return to show me good pictures. Don't tell me, let me guess. He said you should let him help you get revenge on Frank, and then he'll show you the pictures. Well, yeah, that's probably what he wanted. And you? Oh my God, no. And he showed it? No, I didn't agree to go with him to his house, so he didn't show them to me. Didn't you think he didn't show them because he didn't have them? If he had them, he would have shown them to make you even angrier at Frank, so you'd want revenge. I didn't think about it. Didn't you also think about what you were doing? The Hitchin Post is where most of Frank's friends hang out. Did you think that one of them might see you doing all this with Mel and call Frank? No wonder Frank was with Tucker. Basically, I think you threw your marriage in the trash. I can't believe Frank would do this. Dory, honey, I'm not a man, so I can't tell you how a man feels after going through what you just told me you put Frank through, but if it happened to me, I'd be signing the divorce papers by now. If I were you, friend, I'd be looking for some way to get to Frank before things get worse if you want to keep him. The intercom rang, and I pressed a button and said, yes. I know you said not to accept messages from your wife or connect her with you, Stella said, but something happened that makes that impossible. What's happened? She stands in front of me and says she won't leave until she talks to you. Tell her I'm busy and I'm not going to talk to her during office hours. There was a short break, then Stella said, she said she brought a book and will sit here and read it until you finish working. I looked at my watch and saw that there were 3 hours left until the end of the working day. What I was doing was not urgent, and I could have left early, but my mood would not allow me to cut Doris some slack. I needed to get Stella out of the middle of things, and I needed to talk to Doris sooner or later, so I told Stella to tell Doris to enjoy her book. At 4:15, I received a call from my cousin Doris and her best friend Stephanie. "How are you doing, Frank?" "It's been better, Steph. How can I help?" "I had lunch with Dory today, and she's in a terrible state. She told me what was going on, and while I agree she did some stupid things, I don't think it rose to the level of a scam." "Why did you mention divorce?" "I saw you leaving Tucker Davidson's office, and Tucker handles divorces. When she told you what was going on, did she mention cheating?" "She didn't cheat on you, Frank. Timmons told her he had incriminating photos of what you did at the bachelor party and tried to convince her to get back at you by sleeping with him. She teased him, trying to get him to show the photos. She swears that she didn't do anything to him, and I believe her. You two need to sit down and talk, Frank." "Perhaps, Steph, but this is more than what she could do with Timmons, and I'm not sure that talking will change anything. But you're right, I'll have to sit down and discuss this with her sooner or later. Thanks for your concern, Steph, but I'm busy and need to go." "Bye, Frank. Good luck." "Thank you, Steph." At 5 o'clock, I saved my work, turned off the computer, and went to meet Doris. She looked up from her book as I entered the waiting room, and I noticed the worry on her face. She stood up, and I said, "Meet me at the Hitchin Post. We can sit in the same booth where you were cuddling with Timmons and talk," while I walked past her. I stopped at a gas station on the way to fill up, so Doris got to the bar first. She was sitting in one of the back booths, and I remembered that Ray had said that he had seen Doris and Timmons in one of the back booths, and I wondered if that was the booth she was sitting in now, having taken my words about talking in the back literally. The same booth where she was with Mel. I went and sat opposite Doris, and when the waitress Alice came to take my order, I ordered a beer and said, "Separate checks, Alice." The look on my wife's face when I said that made my day. When Alice left, I said, "Okay, Doris, you wanted this meeting. Say what you want to say. Why did you cancel our credit cards and withdraw all the money from our bank accounts?" "Oh, come on, Doris, you're not stupid. You threw all my stuff out of the house and changed the locks so I couldn't get in. That told me you didn't want to see me anymore. I can take a hint, so I left, and since I left, I wasn't going to support you and pay your bills, so I canceled the cards so you couldn't use them. As for the money in the bank, you threw me out of the house, so I figured you should help pay for my new place. Your share of the cash from the bank could help pay for my move. Plus, you still have the house, and it's worth more than what was in the bank. Of course, you will now have to pay the mortgage and utilities yourself. It may be hard on your salary, but what can you do? This is what you wanted, right?" "No, Frank, that's not what I wanted. I went overboard when you said you were going out with that dancer after that party I didn't want you to go to. It happened the way I thought it would. Drunk sex. And what does this have to do with me? Just because it happened and I was there, does that mean I participated? What about when you stopped for a drink after work with the girls you work with? I know for a fact that Linda Bliss and Joyce Baker go to the parking lot with guys they meet at the bar and hang out in the back seats. Because you're there with them, does that mean you're playing in the back seat too? This is different." "No, that's not true, Doris. You're saying it's my fault just because I was there when it happened. So it's your fault too if you're there when Linda and Joyce were doing their thing. I didn't do anything to those two, except I gave them a ride home when their car wouldn't start. The next day I came back and fixed her car. All I got for that was a kiss on the cheek and a thank you, and I was okay with that because that's it. Was everything I expected. And before you ask, I did it because they were in trouble and I could help. Just because they were dancers, I should have turned away. Why didn't you explain this to me? Why did I have to waste my breath, Doris? You haven't listened to a word I've said for the past 2 weeks, so why should I expect you to listen to my explanations? Okay, Frank, I'll eat my pride and admit that I was wrong for doing what I did." She opened her purse, took out an envelope, and handed it to me. "What is this?" "The key to the new locks so you can get home." I handed the envelope back and said, "I don't think so, Doris. The bachelor party and the showgirls are only part of the problem. There are other things I don't like. One of them is that I'm tired of you denying me sex when you want to force me to do it your way. The other is that I'm not sure I want to live with a woman I suspect of cheating. I seriously said what I said on Sunday morning. You love sex as much as I do, and I didn't seem to be in pain after not giving it to me for 2 weeks, so I have to wonder if you really got by without him. I think I know the answer to that after hearing about you and Mel Timmons. And I didn't forget that you strongly implied that you were looking for sex when you got home late on Sunday night, and as far as I know, you found it before you got home. I really don't see any reason to go home, Doris." "Damn it, Frank. You should know me better. I was mad at you and just trying to piss you off. I would never cheat on you." "That's not what I heard. My sources say Mel Timmons helped you get back at me for what you believed I did at the bachelor party." "I didn't do anything with Mel. Well, maybe I flirted with him so he'd show me the pictures. He said he had pictures of you having sex with girls at a party and asked if I wanted them to see, and of course I said yes." "And have you seen pictures of me having sex with girls?" "He only had 2 pictures of you standing and looking. He said he had more explicit pictures, but I didn't want to give him what he wanted, so he showed them to me. I kissed him twice, but this is all." "Do you have a way to prove it, Doris?" She thought for a moment and said, "I think so. Your friend Ronnie Thomas and his wife were there, and I stopped and said hi to them as I left. They can confirm that I left alone, and that Mel was still there when I left." "How do I know you didn't meet him later? How do I know you didn't go off alone to confuse my friends? You know what I'm talking about. I'll leave first, Mel, so no one else saw us leaving together. Meet you at your place. How can I know that this is not how it happened?" "Damn it, Frank. What do you want? For me to take a lie detector test? Okay, organize it and I'll pass. Tell me, Doris, what is it like to deny that something happened and not be trusted?" "This is terrible, Frank. You said a minute ago that I should know you better than to believe such a thing. Shouldn't you also know me better? All these years we've been together, and you haven't trusted me more than that." "I'm sorry, Frank, and looking back, I see that I wasn't rational. All along, I knew about the disastrous consequences of bachelor parties for people I knew, and I just didn't want you to go. Yes, I should have known you better, but in the back of my mind, there was a thought that any man, even a good one, would lose his head when he saw a naked woman ready to accept whoever was there. When you said you were going to meet that dancer on Sunday morning, it only confirmed all my fears. All I could think about was how Ron left his wife and kids and ran off with that woman he met at the bachelor party. I was depressed, Frank, and you didn't do anything to change it. When I yelled at you, you should have understood how I felt. Why didn't you tell me to go with you if I thought you would do something bad? Why didn't you say go and see for yourself instead of leaving and leaving me with my thoughts? So it's my fault, Doris. I don't buy it. Everything that happened was because of your actions. Just because you pushed and pushed until I finally gave in and started pushing back doesn't make it my fault. Can't we just put this behind us, Frank? I love you and I need you by my side. Please, Frank, take the key and come home," she said, and, pushing the envelope with the key back towards me, she looked up and said, "Hi, Brenda." I looked over my shoulder and saw my favorite dancer standing there. She smiled at me and said, "Hi, Frank." Doris looked at me, then at Brenda, and then back at me and asked, "Do you two know each other?" "Yes," I said, "and I understand that you also know each other." "Brenda works with me." "Well, that's not entirely true. I work for her because she's the office manager." I motioned for Brenda to join us, and she sat down next to Doris and across from me. I didn't want to get involved, but when I walked in and saw my two favorite people together, I just had to come over and say hello. Is Frank one of your favorite people? How do you know him? Brenda looked at me in surprise. You and Dory? I nodded in agreement. Question, how do you know my husband? Hung in the air between us, and my brain started working at full capacity. Obviously, Doris didn't know that Brenda worked as a dancer at night, which told me that Brenda probably didn't want Doris or anyone else in the office to know about it, so how to answer the question? I didn't really know Brenda or enough about Brenda to risk a lie that could easily be discovered, so I decided to let Brenda answer the question herself. I looked at Brenda with a look on her face that hopefully said, answer the question, and she seemed to pick up on it or come to the same conclusion as me and decide that this was the way to go. Brenda laughed and said, I tried to steal Frank from his wife, but he wouldn't budge. Here I am. I think I'm one of the most beautiful and sexy women in this state, and he didn't even take my phone number. Were you trying to steal my husband? I didn't know he was your husband. He actually wore gloves, so I didn't see the ring and didn't know he was married. What happened was that Marcia and I were here for drinks, and then the stupid idiot who drank too much decided that he was God's gift to women, and to me in particular, and kept trying to get me to dance with him. I kept refusing, and he finally became verbally abusive. He said a lot of really hurtful things, and I finally got so angry that I threw the drink in his face. He raised his hand to hit me, and Frank, who was just passing by on the way out, intervened, grabbed the guy, and took him out the door into the parking lot. I heard how he told the guy that if he tried to come back, he would hurt him and throw him in a trash can. Then he came back and offered to walk Marcia and me to our cars to make sure the idiot wouldn't bother us when we left. There he was, the knight in shining armor, doing good deeds for the damsel in distress, and being an absolute handsome man at the same time. So I rushed at him, and he just smiled, said he was glad to help, wished me a good night, and left. He let me buy him a drink the next time I saw him here, but no matter how hard I tried, that was all I could hope for. Of course, it was probably a good thing he turned me down, because Marcia wanted him too, and we could have fought over him and stopped being neighbors. Marcia wanted my husband too. Guess I'll have to throw water on her at work. You get a break because it wouldn't be wise to argue with your boss. Good thinking, girlfriend. Now that I see you two together, I understand why he didn't give in, so I'm not so ashamed that he refused. As we talked, the band began to tune up, and when their first song came on, Brenda asked, "Do you mind if I dance with my hero?" I was pretty sure Doris was against it, but apparently she didn't want to say no to her boss, so I wasn't surprised when she said she didn't mind. As I took Brenda's hands to begin the waltz, I said, "Nice move, Donna, or is it Brenda?" "This is Brenda. I don't use my real name when I work at parties." "So Missy is actually Marcia." "That's right. God, Frank, I didn't know you were Dory's husband." "Why would you know? You've never seen us together." "As much as she talks about you, I should have recognized you from her descriptions. Has your relationship improved since the last time we spoke?" "Actually, things have gotten worse," and I told her what had happened since I last saw her, and she was shocked. "This is not the Doris I know. Trust me, Frank, she would never cheat on you. When she talks about you at work, it pisses off all the other girls." "Why does this make other women angry?" "Because, according to Dory, you are flawless. According to her, you can walk on water." "Why are you even talking about me?" "Usually not about you. During one of our breaks, some girl complains about something her husband or boyfriend did, and the other girls start talking about their men too. Then Dory puts in her 2 cents. This girl thinks that you hung the moon and stars, Frank. She will never cheat on you. She will get angry and play a prank on you, but never in her life. I don't know, Brenda. Her tone and the way she said it didn't sound like she was trying to prank me. I rarely stay late with the team after work because I usually have a meeting, if you know what I mean, but when I stay late, all the girls get proposals and Dory has never danced more than once with any of the guys who asked her. Some of the girls even walked out into the parking lot and Dory looked at them with disgust. She doesn't even talk to Joyce and Linda because Linda and Joyce would never cheat on their husbands, Frank. Absolutely never. No matter what you are, cheating on Dory is not one of them. The music stopped, and as we walked back to the booth, Brenda said, "I'm going to piss off your wife when we get back to the booth. And when I do, I want you to remember that. Dory is my friend, but if you can't work things out with her, I was completely serious when I said, for you to call me." We walked up to the booth, and she actually kissed me, and then she picked up her purse and said she had to go, and then she said to Doris, "Take care of my hero. See you at work." I sat down and Doris said, "Did you turn her down?" She was joking when she said she was one of the most beautiful and sexiest women in this state, but the fact is that's what she is, and you turned her down. Of course I refused. I'm a married man and I made promises in church in front of 100 people, and I keep my promises even if some others don't. Damn it, Frank. I told you I was willing to take a lie detector test if I had to. I didn't cheat on you. That's how I look at it, Doris. You made this mess, so if it gets cleaned up, you get to clean it up. I stood up to leave, and she said, "What do you mean, Frank? Where are you going? We need to work this out, Frank. You need to come home." Think about it, Doris. Maybe you'll understand. I left the bar and went to my room. As I was emptying the contents of my pockets onto the chest of drawers, I saw that I had taken the envelope with the key that Doris had tried to give me. It's a sign. The next 2 days were busy for me. I had to fly to Denver for a series of meetings, and they were very productive. The results could lead to a nice bonus for me. I was in a good mood when I got home and decided to treat myself to a holiday dinner at my favorite steakhouse. About 10 minutes had passed when Brenda, Marcia, and 2 men entered the restaurant and sat down on the other side of the room from me. Brenda looked around the room, saw me, smiled, and turned to say something to Marcia. Marcia looked in my direction, waved, and smiled. I thought that these 2 men must be the luckiest guys in the world to be with, and I wondered why I was internally wired this way. I could have had both, but I decided against it. This thought reminded me that it had been almost a month since I had made love, and it looked like it would continue to be for a long time. I was just finishing dessert when Brenda stood up and walked over to my table. "Come join us, Frank. I wouldn't want to interfere with your dates." "It's not a date, Frank. It's more of a business meeting. They're throwing a bachelor party, and we're having dinner with them, discussing the details. I pointed you out as a happy client, and they asked me to invite you. I think they want to see if we're worth it. Your money." "I didn't use the service, Brenda, so how do I know?" "You saw it all, Frank. Did you see the disappointment on anyone's face?" "No, not even a little." "You don't have to tell them you weren't involved. Just say everyone there had the time of their lives." "I guess I could say that." I joined the group, answered the questions they asked me, and the men seemed pleased. One of them paid the bill, and both got up to leave. The one named Dawn shook hands with Brenda and Marcia and said, "See you Friday at 7, and then both men left. "Well, Frank," Marcia said, "now you're left alone with 2 hot girls who want your body, so what are you going to do?" "Go back to your room and cry." "Why are you going to do this?" "Look, ladies, if I was single, I would kill to be with any of you. But I'm married, and this is something I take seriously. Cheating on my wife is something I won't do." I saw Marcia look at Brenda with a look that I couldn't decipher, and Brenda said, "You can at least sit with us and have a couple of drinks." "Yes, I can do that." I had 2 drinks with them and then said that was it. I spent some time thinking about the situation with Doris, and towards the end of the next day, I decided to stop by the house and talk to her. I was pretty sure she was telling the truth about Timmons, but we still needed to discuss her bad habit of cutting me off when she didn't like something. I used my new key to get in, and as I walked through the front door, I heard Doris talking in the kitchen. I didn't expect anyone to be with her, and I was about to turn and leave when I realized that she was talking on the phone through speakerphone, which she sometimes did while working in the kitchen. The voice on the other end of the phone sounded like Brenda's, so I stopped and listened. If you and Marcia couldn't seduce him, I doubt the dancers at that bachelor party could. I think it's time to come clean, friend. The story I told you at that party about how I met Frank was pure fiction. The truth is, Marcia and I were dancers at that party, and the story Frank told you was 100% true. Our car wouldn't start, and he drove us home, and then he came back the next day and fixed the car. Marcia and I literally threw ourselves at him, and he only allowed me to kiss him on the cheek. He was in a bad mood, and I asked him why. I think he felt the need to talk, and he told me about how he was doing with his wife. I did tell him that if he couldn't make things work with his wife, he should call me. Of course then. I didn't know that you were his wife. You have a golden man, a friend, and you need to do everything possible to keep him. My problem is that I painted myself into a corner, and now I'm finished. How so? I told him I'd take a lie detector test to prove I didn't cheat on him with Mel. I expected him to say it wasn't necessary. Well, why would I suggest it if I had something to hide, right? But the thing is, he said that since I created this mess, it was up to me to clean it up. I took it to mean that I needed to arrange everything and take the test. So do it. I can't. The test will show that I wasn't lying when I said I didn't do anything with Mel, but you can be sure that one of the questions will be, have you ever cheated on your husband? And we both know that I can't get past this question. Why not? Have you forgotten about those 3 parties I worked with you a long time ago? Oh yes, I forgot, but that was over 6 years ago. But I was married when this happened, and the question would be, have you ever cheated on your husband? I've painted myself into a corner. Now Frank expects me to pass the test, and I can't do it. If I pass the test, I won't be able to pass it, and if I don't pass, Frank will think I knew that I won't be able to pass it. I never asked then, but why did you stop? You were a real star among men, and you seemed to enjoy it. I liked it more than just liked it. I adored it. I liked it so much that I wanted to do it more often, but I knew that if I continued, sooner or later Frank would find out. No matter how much I adored it and wanted it, it would have cost me Frank, and I couldn't let that happen. He means everything to me. If you feel this way, why did you even start? Frank was away for over 3 months on a project and wasn't coming back for another 2 or 3 months, and I wasn't getting enough sex. I was going crazy, and when you and Marcia talked about your adventures at parties, it only made things worse. You're everything. Described it so excitingly that I volunteered to help. It was amazing, Bren, and I still think about it and want it again. But it was a choice between this and Frank will always come first when I make decisions. Oh God, Bren, what should I do? I can't lose Frank. I just can't. You won't like to hear this, friend, but you're right. You've painted yourself into a corner, and the only hope I see for you is to confess. I haven't known Frank that long, and I certainly don't know him well, but he seems to be a man who values honesty. I also got the impression from his behavior when I tried to seduce him that he loves you very much. If I were you, I would sit down with him and tell him everything. If I can help, let me know. See you at work tomorrow. I quietly left the house and returned to my motel room. My Doris at bachelor parties, I would never have believed it. Not in a million years. This certainly made a difference. Doris didn't seem to cheat on me with Timmons, but she did cheat on me, and it was serious. When I returned with the new key, I intended to try to mend the relationship, but this overheard conversation changed everything. Suddenly, I didn't know what to do. Damn it! I wasn't going to sit in a room and go crazy thinking. I took the keys and drove to the hitching post. After 2 beers and 3 games of pool, I saw Mel Timmons walk in with a beautiful red-haired girl and decided to ruin his evening. I waited until they were seated and had their first drink and then walked over to their table. What is it, asshole? I heard you told my wife that you had pictures of me doing bad things at Jim's bachelor party. You told her that if she slept with you, you would show her the pictures. How about showing them to me? I won't sleep with you to see them, but in the mood I'm in right now, I'm ready to give you a hard time. Fuck off, Frank. I'm not afraid of you. That's good, asshole. If you were afraid of me, you'd avoid me and I wouldn't be able to get to you. Win or lose, Mel, it doesn't matter, as long as I can hurt you a little. Let's do it some other time, Frank. I'm with someone right now. I turned to the woman and said, let me tell you a story. This jerk has been trying to get into my wife's pants for years. Last week, we went to my cousin Jim's bachelor party, and after it ended, this jerk called my wife and said that he has pictures of me cheating on her with two dancers at a party. He told her that if she sleeps with him to get back at me, he will show her the pictures. As a result, we have now broken up. This is the type of person you want. Spend your time. She looked at Timmons and then back at me and said, no, but I have no way of getting home if I leave him. Of course there are. I'll be happy to give you a ride, but if you don't want to take any chances with me, I'll give you money for a taxi. The problem is that I just came and was waiting for this evening. Do you play billiards? Yes. Then join us at the pool tables. You can play with us, and when the band arrives, I think Dave, Jim, and I can keep you on the dance floor until you want to leave. Without saying a word to Mel, she stood up and said, let's go. I looked at Mel and said, this is not the end between us, Mel. Sooner or later, we will meet in a place where we don't have to worry about the police. And one more thing. Every time I see you here with a girl, I'll do the same thing I did now. I turned and followed the redhead towards the pool tables. Her name was Hannah, and she was very funny. And not a bad billiards player either. We played pool until the band started playing, and I asked her to dance. While we were dancing, she asked me how true what I said about Mel was, and I replied, 100%. Have you and your wife settled everything yet? Not yet, and I don't know if we can. So meeting me is revenge on Mel and hoping for luck to get back at his wife. No way. Ruining Mel's evening, yes, but no matter what my wife did, I'm not cheating. I meant what I said. No strings attached, I'll give you a ride home or call a taxi. If I were divorced or even in the divorce stage, I would hunt you like a duck chasing a June bug. I think I believe you, and it's weird because I don't really trust married men. The music ended, and for the next 2 hours, Dave, Jim, and I held Hannah on the dance floor. I noticed Mel was standing off to the side, taking photos with his cell phone. I assumed that Doris would receive a phone call from him. Around 11, Hannah said she had to go because she had to work the next day. Should I call you a taxi? No, I'll take you up on your offer of a ride. We talked while I was driving her home, and I learned that she was a legal secretary and had met Mel when he came to consult with one of the lawyers at her firm. He seemed like a good guy. Apparently, I'm not very good at identifying bad guys. I don't know. I'm biased because of what he tried to do to my wife, but honestly, there aren't many guys who wouldn't try if they thought they'd get lucky. Is she that hot? Don't forget that I'm biased. When I drove her to her place, she leaned over, kissed me on the cheek, and handed me a piece of paper with a phone number. I may not be very good at identifying the bad ones, but I am infallible at identifying the good ones. If you don't succeed, call. I left feeling pretty good. This feeling stayed with me until I returned to my room. My cell phone rang as soon as I opened the door. The display said it was Doris. I opened it and said, yes. We need to talk, Frank. Can you come over tomorrow after work? No, it won't work tomorrow. What about the day after tomorrow? Yes, I can do it the day after tomorrow. At 7, I'll cook dinner. No dinner, Doris, but I'll be there at 7. I could have come the next day, but I had the idea that I knew what Doris was going to say, and I needed to do something before talking to Doris. I rummaged through my wallet and found the piece of paper I was looking for. I looked at her for a few seconds, wondering if I really wanted to do this, and decided that yes, I did. Even though it was quite late to call, I dialed the number. When she answered, I said, I need a big favor, Brenda. She was waiting for me in a booth in the corner. When I sat down, she said, okay, Frank, you have my full attention. You said I could help you get it back with Doris. I have my full attention, honey. How can I help? You can tell me everything you know about Doris. Skip all the good things. I only want to hear the bad. It's a bad thing that I need to deal with. I don't know such things. Of course you do, Brenda, and you won't help if you lie. I know for a fact that you know about the 3 bachelor parties she attended while I was in Alaska for 5 months. Her face turned white. You know about it? Yes, I know, but I want to know what I don't already know. What other things are there that I don't even know about? If I'm going to go back to Doris, I'll have to declare an amnesty, but I want to know what it is that I'm forgiving. There won't be a second chance. If she confesses, as you suggested, I want to hear everything, not just part of it. If she confesses, and then I find out that there were other things she didn't mention, it's over. I'll leave and not look back. And if there's something else, I'll find out sooner or later, just like I found out about the bachelor parties. How did you know that I suggested she confess? Professional secret. The point is, if she does confess, I want to hear everything. If I forgive what she tells me and then find out there was more, then that's the end of it. So tell me about the bachelor parties and about everything you know. What can I tell you? You saw one of them where we met, and they are all about the same. The only thing that changes is their faces. How did she get involved in this? All the girls at work know what Marcia and I do. We never intended for them to find out, but Sandy's husband was at one of the parties and took some pictures on his cell phone. Sandy found the photos and recognized us. She showed the photos to the girls in the office, and our secret was revealed. Instead of considering us freaks, all the girls wanted to know how we started this and so on. A couple of them even said that they would like to try, so Marcia and I set it up. We both did it once and said once was enough. Dory was one of those people who wanted to know everything about it. She was always asking what we were doing, how we were doing it, and I could tell she was interested in trying it, but couldn't make up her mind. One day, during lunch break, Dory sat down with me and asked why I was depressed that day, and I told her Marcia and I were going to a party, and Marcia was sick because I had to serve at least 12 guys on my own, and I didn't like it. Dory said she would replace Marcia. I asked her if she knew what she was getting into, and she said no, but it's something she's been wanting to try since she heard about it. I asked her why she was willing to risk her marriage, and she said that she went away for 3 months and wouldn't be back for another 2 months, and that she was willing to sleep with at least 100 men. You would never know, so she doesn't mind. She didn't take any chances. She went with me that night, and she liked it so much that she did it 2 more times, and then she said she couldn't do it anymore, and as far as I know, she never did it again. I find it hard to believe that she could go from being a faithful wife to participating in group parties overnight. In my mind, there must have been some kind of transition, a romance in a parking lot, or maybe a short fling. I just can't imagine that the faithful wife on Tuesday suddenly went to the bachelor party on Wednesday. I don't know what to tell you, Frank. I didn't always stay with the girls after work, so I don't know what happened when I was gone, but I never saw her do anything on those nights when I was there except dancing with the guys who invited her, and I don't know anything else. I really didn't expect to get anything from Brenda. If she knew something, I doubt she would have told me, because she is a friend of Dory's and barely knows me. But I expected her to tell Doris about our meeting and suggest that Doris should not hide anything if she was really going to take Brenda's advice and confess. I was determined to try to repair my relationship with Doris. One thing was clear about this overheard conversation over the speakerphone. Doris loves me and doesn't want to lose me. Yes, she cheated on me, but that was 6 years ago, and she stopped as soon as she realized that what she was doing could somehow get back to me and cost her me and her marriage. I was pissed off that she cheated, and especially pissed off by the way she did it. Group parties at bachelor parties, for God's sake. But then again, that was 6 years ago, and it didn't do us any harm. In fact, you could say that some good came out of it. Before I went to Alaska, Doris refused me some things, sexually. After I returned from Fairbanks, this gradually changed. When I asked why the sudden change, she told me about some articles she had read in Cosmopolitan and other similar magazines about how to spice up your sex life and decided to give it a try. So all things became a regular part of our sex. At the time, I took her words as truth, but looking back, it was easy to see that the real reason was because she did it during her group parties and she liked it. So I was already in a forgiving mood when I arrived at the house to meet Doris, but I think it was more of a try to forgive mood than anything else. There was still one other issue that needed to be resolved if we were to go through with Doris' confession, if that was really what our meeting was going to be about. I rang the doorbell and waited. I called a second time and waited again. I was about to call a third time, but then I said, "To hell with it," and turned to walk away to his truck. I heard the door open behind me and Doris shouted, "Where are you going, Frank?" When you didn't answer the door, I thought you changed your mind about talking, so I'm leaving. I didn't open the door because it's your house. All you had to do was open the door and come in. This is not my house, Doris. Have you already forgotten that you threw all my things out on the lawn and locked me out? Let's not fight, Frank. Please just come in. When she walked in, she asked if I wanted to sit in the living room or the kitchen, and I chose the kitchen. She went to the refrigerator and took 2 bottles of beer. She opened them and placed one in front of me. I took a sip, put the bottle on the table, and said, "Okay, Doris, you made this appointment, so get started." She looked at the beer bottle for a few seconds, then looked at me and said, "I need you to believe when I say I love you. I really love you, Frank, and losing you would kill me. I've almost come to terms with the fact that I lost you, and I have no one to blame but myself. I'm myself." Got me into trouble that night when I said I'd take a lie detector test to prove I didn't cheat on you with Mel Timmons. I would have taken the test, Frank. I would have taken it if the only question was, when are you? Slept with Mel Timmons. But the next day, while I was looking for someone to give me the test, I realized that there would be other questions, and that one of the questions would be, have you ever cheated on your husband? I couldn't get past this issue, Frank. I cheated on you, but it was a long time ago, and honestly, it didn't change our marriage. If anything, it made it better, because it showed me what I could lose if you ever found out. I know it sounds stupid, but cheating on you really made me a better wife for you. It sounds stupid even to me when I say it, but it's true. I really have become a better wife, or at least I think so. She looked at me as if she was expecting me to say something, but I just sat there, drank my beer, and waited for her to start talking again. When she realized I wasn't going to talk, she continued. "It happened 6 years ago when you were in Alaska on a temporary assignment. I was so used to us making love 4 or 5 times a week that the lack of sex was just killing me, and after 2 months I began to think about an affair. I thought long and hard about it. I decided to do it because you were away in Alaska and you would never know. I went on dates several times, but when it came time to decide, I backed down. I know myself well, Frank, and I knew that if I started a relationship, I would become emotionally attached, and I didn't want to replace you. I just wanted sex. Several times I got seriously involved. I was in a bad place. I wanted it. I needed it. I craved it, but I couldn't bring myself to take the final step and go all the way. I couldn't trust myself not to fall in love. Then the opportunity came to have sex without any possibility of emotional attachment. Not only would there be no possibility of emotional attachment, but it would also allow me to fulfill a fantasy that I have had for some time. She looked at me, expecting me to say something about fantasies, but I just sat there, so she continued. "You know Brenda, and although you would never suspect it of her, she works as a dancer in the evenings and throws bachelor parties. One of the girls found out about it, and we all started asking her about it. The more I heard, the more I wanted to know what it would be like. I started fantasizing about it. It sounded so exciting, but it was just a fantasy, Frank. I fantasized about doing the same thing. I never expected to do something like that, but I do it all the time. I thought about it. Becky and Karen wanted to try it and got Brenda to set it up for them. They both said it was amazing, and they loved it, but once was enough. Even in my condition, I doubt I would ever have found the courage to ask Brenda to arrange it for me. But one day she was in a depressed mood and I asked her why. She told me that Marcia, another girl I work with who helped her at parties, was sick or something kind of thing and couldn't go to one of the planned parties. Brenda was upset because she would have to go to the party alone and she didn't like it. I still don't know what prompted me to do it, but I offered to substitute Marsh at that party. It was exactly what Becky and Karen said. It was amazing, and I loved it so much that I did it twice more, and I wanted to do it more. But suddenly I realized that I couldn't hide it. If I continued, you would eventually find out, and I knew what you would have done when it happened. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't lose you, Frank. I just couldn't. You were my world. I've never loved anyone as much as I love you. So I stopped these parties, even though I really enjoyed it. That I saw at these parties, that was also the reason why I was so opposed to your participation. I saw how men react in such an environment. Many years have passed since then, but I still think about those 3 parties and wish that I could have both. Both. Being able to party and still keep you. But here we are, 6 years later, and the damn partying ended up costing me you, and I have no one to blame but myself. If I hadn't done that nonsense with Mel and tried to make you think I cheated on you out of spite, I wouldn't have been in a situation where I would have had to take a lie detector test that I couldn't pass. I'm so sorry for what I did to us. I looked at her long and hard, and then said, "Take the test, Doris. If you can prove that those 3 parties you talked about are the only times you cheated, I'll come back and we can talk some more." I got up and left the house. I believed her, but despite this, I felt the need to make her suffer. I, too, missed sex while in Alaska, just like she did here at home, but I held myself and behaved as expected because I believed that I had a loving and faithful wife who was waiting for me at home. Leaving her alone in the house, thinking she lost me, would be at least some kind of retribution. Some people might have said, "Okay, she owes me, so I'll just call Brenda and Marcia and even the scores." But I wasn't that kind of person. Damn luck. The next day at 4, Stella called me on the intercom. "Are you still dodging your wife's calls?" "No. Connect it." The phone rang and I picked it up. "Yes." "This is Doris, Frank. I found someone to give me a test. He wants to talk to you to see what questions to ask. His name is Josh Barnum. Here's his number. If you call him before noon tomorrow, he can schedule a test for 10 a.m. Thursday and return results by mid to late afternoon." "Okay, Doris. I'll call him as soon as you hang up." "I love you, Frank. I really do." "Of course you do, Doris. Of course you do," I said, disconnecting. I called Barnum, explained the situation, my concerns, and what I needed to know, and then called my cousin Lou, who was a police officer, and asked him to find out what he could about Barnum. He called me back at 6 and said that the department often used Barnum's services and that he had a pretty good reputation. I went to my room, confident that I would get a reliable test. If Doris passes it, we'll have another meeting. What if it doesn't work? Well, I've already moved. The next 2 days passed quickly, and at noon on Thursday, I received a call from Doris, who said she had taken the test and signed a release so Barnum could give me the results. She had to sign a release because she was paying for the test, not me. I didn't expect to hear from him until Friday, as Doris said the results would be ready by mid to late afternoon, so I was surprised when Barnum called me at 2:15. "The results are clear. Apart from the cases she reported, she told the truth when it came to other cases of infidelity. I hope this helps you to calm down." "That helps. Thanks for calling." I had just left the office when my cell phone rang again. It was Doris. "Did you get the results?" "Yes." "Are you coming home?" "I'll come by tomorrow and we'll talk." "Tomorrow? Why can't you come today?" "I still have some things to think about." "Tomorrow at 7. "There's no way I can get you to come today?" "No. See you tomorrow," and I hung up. I spent the night in my room, thinking about what to say to Doris. She's still not out of danger. True, she passed the lie detector test, but I still had one more problem that needed to be solved before we could return to normal life. The next day, I was walking up the steps at 7 in the evening, and before I reached the top step, Doris opened the door. "To the kitchen?" she asked, and I nodded. We went there. She took 2 bottles of beer from the refrigerator, and we sat down at the table. I took a sip of beer and said, "You took a lie detector test, but the fact remains that you cheated on me while I was in Alaska. I listened to your explanations, but they do not convince me. I also suffered from a lack of sex like you, but I held myself and behaved as he promised when he made the wedding vows. I don't know what pisses me off more, the fact of cheating or the way you did it. I thought about it a lot and decided that I could get over it since you didn't do it anymore. And over the past 6 years, we've had mostly good years, and until recently, I had no reason to doubt your love for me. I admit that I have received some benefits from your infidelity at group parties. Did you notice that mostly Doris? There were parts of these years that were terrible, and what I have to decide now is whether I want to be in a situation again where that could happen again. We can go back to my trip to Alaska. I stayed faithful, and you didn't. I suffered as much from lack of sex as you did, but I endured and kept my promises. The common thread between then and now, Doris, is that I suffer when I don't get sex. I act like a man and endure. Over the past few years, including recently when you made this nonsense about Jim's bachelor party, you used sex as a weapon against me. Every time you did it, I was silent. Suffered while every cell in my body screamed, "You don't have to put up with this crap, you fool. Go find a woman and have sex with her." But I never did because I believed in my vows. I'm tired of you using sex to punish me or force me to do what you want. I accept that your body is yours and only you can decide what to do with it. I understand that there will be times when I want to make love and you don't want to. I understand that there will be times when you feel bad or have a headache and you don't want to make love. I can accept it, but I won't tolerate it anymore. You used sex as a weapon against me. So, this is where we are now. You know my position, and you need to think about how you want to proceed. I'll never do it again, Frank. I swear to God, I'll never do it again. No, Doris, that won't do. I don't want you to say it right after I told you. I want you to think about it. Make sure you can make that promise and keep it, because if we get back together and you do this shit again, I'll leave and there won't be any more conversations. So think about it, Doris. I'll call you in a couple of days and we'll talk again. I don't need time to think about it, Frank. You may think you don't have to, but I think I do, and I'm the one who has to decide if I should risk coming back to you. I'm paying for a hotel room for the week, and I paid by Sunday. I'll call you on Sunday, and I got up and left. I acted like a fool, and I knew it. I didn't need to wait until Sunday, but I wanted the satisfaction of seeing her suffer, given all the trouble she had caused me. I left the house and headed to the hitching post. I drank beer and played pool until I decided it was time to call it a night. On Saturday, I ran some errands, went to the laundromat, and washed my dirty clothes. In the evening, I found myself back at the hitching post. I was drinking beer and playing pool when a voice behind me said, "Why are you playing this stupid game when you could be dancing with me?" I turned around and saw Hannah standing there. "Good question," I said and handed the cue to Sam, saying, "You win, Sam," and leading Hannah to the dance floor. "I was surprised when you didn't call after you took me home last week." "Why? I told you about my situation." "Yeah, but I thought that was just a line you give to girls to get them to lower their guard." "Sorry, but it was true. I've been watching you since you've been here, and I haven't seen another woman. Haven't you settled things yet?" "Almost settled, maybe tomorrow." "Okay, then I have you until tomorrow." "See you tomorrow?" "At least until this place closes or one of us decides to leave." The song ended, and I led her back to her desk and joined her. We danced a few more dances and had just sat down after the waltz when she said, "You know those 2 women over there? They haven't taken their eyes off us since they came." I looked in the direction she was pointing and saw Brenda and Marcia sitting at the table. When I looked at them, they both waved at me, and I waved back. "These are 2 more members of my fan club. Together with you, there are only 3 of them. Now that I have seen them, you will have to share me with them. Why? Because they work with my wife, and if we don't join them, they'll think I'm dating you, and I don't want them to tell Doris that. I stood up and walked over to Brenda and Marcia and asked them if they wanted to join me and Hannah at our table. Won't this ruin your evening? Asked Marcia. There's no party, just a girl I know asked me to dance. Are you alone here? Brenda asked. I nodded and said, I came over to play pool and drink beer, and Hannah decided she wanted to save me. I take it you haven't settled things with Doris yet? Brenda asked. We've talked and may have made progress. I'll know in a day or two. Brenda raised her eyebrows and I said, she took your advice. I know everything now, and yes, I can get over it, but we still have one issue that needs to be resolved. What advice? Asked Marcia. I'll tell you later, Brenda said. So, how about it? Join us. Brenda looked at Marcia, who shrugged. Brenda said, I think we should, if only to keep you out of that girl's clutches and to protect Doris's interests. Bullshit, Marcia said. I'm doing this to make sure she doesn't get a clear advantage if Frank doesn't work things out with Doris. As far as I'm concerned, we have first right to Frank. 3 of us walked over and joined Hannah, and I introduced them to each other. I spent the rest of the evening dancing with 3 of them. When I danced with Brenda, she naturally wanted to know what would happen next to Doris. Chances are, Dory and I will be together when you see her at work on Monday. It's not 100%, but it's close. I could be wrong. I gave her an ultimatum, and if she accepts it, we'll be together. If no, then no. You know there will be a few upset women if you and Dory make up, right? This is unlikely. But it's true. Marcia loves Dory, but she hopes you don't go back to each other so she can have a chance with you. The young lady you just introduced to us is clearly crazy about you, and then, of course, Dory is a good friend, and I would never try to take you away from her. But if you broke up, I would pursue you without hesitation. Well, just between you and me, if Dory and I break up and Marcia, Hannah, and you are still free, you win. She smiled, kissed me, and we returned to the table when the song ended. Soon after, I called it a night and returned to the motel. The next morning, I slept until late, and when I got up, I went to IHOP for breakfast. I returned to my room and debated whether to pack my things, but then decided not to take anything for granted. At noon, I called Doris. Hello? It's me. When are you coming home? What have you decided? Damn it, Frank. You know damn well what I've decided. It will never happen again. I swear it. Please come home. Meet me at 5. I need to pack something. I'll cook dinner. As I packed my things, I wondered if she would be able to keep her promise. Women by nature tend to use sex to get what they want, but I was serious. Perhaps only time will tell.